thank you, Congressman Bishop, for that very, very kind introduction, and thanks for honoring my dad. You know, this really is, and our Army is a family. And I shouldn't say our Army, I saw some Marines in here this morning. Our military, it's just one big family. And it's amazing how small that family is. I mean, I was talking to the man that retired my dad in 1990 when he was the Command Sergeant Major here at Fort Benning. So anyways, it's wonderful for me to be here, and I'd like to thank each of you for allowing me to join you at this ever impressive, beautiful, and supportive National Infantry Museum. What an incredible place to spend the day thinking about and serving our service members and their families. And I especially want to thank the Congressional Military Family Caucus, including Representatives Bishop and Kiggins, for putting this on. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Garrett. I'm a proud military family member. As was mentioned, I'm an Army son, Army brother, Army husband, dad, uncle, godfather. Now my grandkids live on Army installations. They'll grow up, and believe me, I am there often, and I hear it with them. Artillery during nap time, and watching Apaches flying overhead while they're playing outside. In other words, when it comes to serving military families, not only do I have skin in the game, it has been part of my entire life. And so it's an honor to join you at the Military Family Summit, and clearly it's a topic that I could not be more passionate about or more excited to speak on at a place that means a great deal to me. You see, I've spent my entire life in and around the Army. And Fort Benning is as much my home as anywhere on this planet. I grew up here. My father, Command Sergeant Major Edward Garrett, served here. Retired as the Post Command Sergeant Major in 1990. My mom worked as a civil servant on this post. They settled in Columbus, Georgia, and never left. I trained here myself. This was the first place that Lorelei and I lived as newlyweds while assigned to 3rd Ranger Battalion. My mother passed away many years ago. My dad still lives in town, being cared for by my sister, who is also a veteran. And eventually, as was mentioned, my son came here to train as a second lieutenant himself. And so you can also tell that the old Army policy of one in and one out continues to go strong. And all of this is to say that if you want to talk about military families, I'm your guy. The Garrett family has had great experiences in the Army, and yes, we have gone through hard times. And without getting too personal, we're going through some of it right now. We've learned our own lessons. We've certainly tried to share them along the way. And as leaders, Lorelei and I have done all we can to make life even better for the soldier spouses, kids, and dependents in our orbit. But there's a danger in our depth of experiences too. Do I know a lot about military families? Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe I just know a lot about my military family, but not a thing about yours. Truth be told, I've got a track record of not knowing nearly as much about my own military family as I thought I did. Lord knows I've been on both sides of the subject and the creator of limited worldviews. Nothing egregious, but there are experiences that stick with me. I can remember growing up here at Fort Benning, Georgia. Those of you that have been to airborne school the red brick houses where I grew up. I lived in 3 different neighborhoods in that area. I remember when the post sergeant major, this is how we distinguished the post sergeant major back in the 60s, his little red brick duplex had its own light pole in the backyard. And I guess that was so that he could entertain at night. I remember as a young child of a non-commissioned officer living on that side of post and hopping on the bus with my 3 sisters for the first 3 years, going all the way to Phoenix City to Mother Mary Mission, and then later going the other way to St. Anne's and Pacelli. I remember being able to walk from my house to the swimming pool and the bowling alley, and those places are still there. And I don't remember my parents hovering around. I don't remember any parents hovering around. But maybe they should. But what I do remember, and what I know, because me and my best friend Paul Funk talk about this all the time when I tell him that I grew up in the mean streets where all the NCO kids live. And he grew up on the other side of the post where all the officers are. But I do remember that. Decades later, after Lorelei and I started our own family, I sparked the now infamous Cheerio incident that nearly ruined and ended our marriage. I was heading out like I did 2-3 times a month to some 5-star hotel in some Asian country, leaving my wife with a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old at home. And as I was walking out the door, I noticed underneath my favorite easy chair a Cheerio. And when I came home, guess what? That Cheerio was still there. Now, I would never make that mistake today, but then, yes, I noticed that Cheerio, and I said something about it. You know, decades later still, General Garrett, who lived in the biggest house in Fort Bragg, demonstrated his disconnect with an entire generation of junior soldiers by publicly declaring that they ought to have roommates over privacy in the barracks. In these stories and thousands more throughout my life, patience and empathy could have reduced strain and opened doors. So just as I have experience to share, I've got far more to learn, and I'll do my best to check my preconceived notions and false assumptions at the door. I give all of you explicit permission to call me out when I fall short. Many have done that in the past. And I hope you do, because this summit is not an opportunity that we can afford to squander. The Department of Defense says that we've got about 2.6 million family members in the armed forces. Today, you represent them all. Oh, there's my sister. Thank you, Stephanie. Today, you represent them all to Congress through the Congressional Military Family Caucus. The questions you ask and the insights you share this morning will not only help shape policy and discussions on the Hill, but they'll also shape attitudes and action in our communities for the year ahead. And what's more important, these same conversations will empower each of us to share resources and best practices with the military families within our own circles. We entered this building in part to explore our families' challenges and opportunities. But when we walk out in a few short hours, it's my hope and belief that we will have moved from exploration to action. Today, I'm well aware that there's probably nothing I can say about the importance of military families that many of you don't already know or haven't lived for yourselves. But it's always worth reiterating what it's meant to my soldiers and for me to have the government and community support in caring for our families. After all, we get a resounding peace of mind from knowing our kids and our spouses have a safe and comfortable roof over their head while we're out in the field or deployed. We get pride in knowing our family members' schools and jobs are helping them to grow and to perform as individuals. We get confidence, focus, grit, and determination just knowing that there is a community and a nation that will commit time and passion and hard, tangible resources to our loved ones in the best and worst of times. Number crunchers, penny pushers might say that that level of support begets a worthy return on investment. Combat-hardened leaders from my father's Vietnam era might say that these on-base resources are there to mitigate distractions and keep our warfighters focused on the mission. Psychologists might say it's about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that service members can't grow, perform, and achieve until their family's fundamental needs are met. And maybe the psychs and warfighters and number crunchers, maybe they do have compelling points. But I doubt any of us showed up today because of their rationalizations. You and I are here to do what's best for our families because it's simply the right thing to do. And if you ask me, that's the simplest and most compelling reason to do anything at all. So here's what we're going to do in a few minutes. I'll stop talking about things I might know or might not know enough about, and we're going to welcome a series of panelists up here throughout the day, spouses, civilians, service members from each branch of the Department of Defense. First, we're going to talk about the challenges facing military families today. Patty George, a West Point grad, combat veteran, and leader in her own right, will share insights from her years serving Army families alongside her husband. Chief Master Sergeant Israel Nunez will share the often overlooked reservist perspective towards military family life and help us extend a helping hand to families without access to on-post resources. After lunch, we'll dive into spiritual, physical, mental, and medical health, not just for our service members, but for our whole family unit. Generals Mary Izagiri and Bill Green will share what the Army's doing to create positive and smooth services for our people. And finally, we'll talk about a topic that can really feel far off and conceptual until suddenly it's upon you. And that's the inevitable transition from military to civilian life, which is obviously not an individual event, but a family-wide campaign, and in many cases, a complete lifestyle shift. And throughout each of these panels, we're fortunate to have guests, experts, military champions to share their own experience, research, and resources. Now, if you're here to learn, listen, and absorb today's lessons, I won't discourage you. These are big topics, and I can't blame you for wanting to hear from the experts. But the real magic in a summit like this will come from those of you who showed up ready to engage. Ask questions, challenge assumptions, share stories, drive action, and affect change. Around 80,000 U.S. Army soldiers report to Fort Benning for training every year. And not much later, they out-process as soldiers, change, stronger, and more adept individuals. Around 4 million people have toured the National Infantry Museum, each gaining in one way or another a deeper understanding and appreciation for those who fight for our freedom. In that spirit, I'll ask you to walk out of this building today as new leaders yourselves, as members of a broader team. To this team, I'll leave you with one final ask. Perhaps this is Mike Garrett's preconceived notions creeping in, or maybe there's a little bit of merit to my words, but I'll leave it to you to decide. Like many of you, I've been to my fair share of panels, sensing sessions, Q's and A's. And yes, we come to these events to solve problems, which means we spend the majority of our time raising and exploring, debating problems. After all, we wouldn't be here if there weren't problems to be solved. Congress would not have a military family caucus if not for that same reason. But it would be a disservice to your own psyche and to your influence as a military family leader to let yourself become so mired in these problems that you overlook our strengths, because we certainly have those as well. Life as a military family, yes, it can be challenging, but it can also have incredible long-term opportunity and be one for young Americans and their loved ones. A life of service can propel even the lowest class Americans into the upper middle class, like my parents, based on their own work ethic within the world's strongest meritocracy. The U.S. government and taxpayers deliver our families housing, benefits, positive lifestyle, safety, mentors, purpose, and community. And all of these things are worth appreciating. I have traveled and engaged militaries around the world. And I can assure you that no nation on this earth supports its troops the way that we do. Today we aim not only to keep it that way, but to make it even better. So don't forget to celebrate the resources that we already have put in place and look for ways to build on that momentum. Congressman, again, thank you for that wonderful introduction. There are many familiar faces in the crowd today. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your love, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful day. Thank you.